It's a beautiful day in sam.gov, but some procurement folks aren't showing much love. The industry friends, government friends, don't work in a vacuum with no feedback from the folks in the market who know what you lack. Industry friends, government friends, be each other's neighbor. I really want to send an RFQ to you that doesn't look like it was written in 1982. So let's make the most of the rules that we share. Use common sense and act like we care. Industry friends, government friends, be each other's neighbor. Hello, neighbors. We're going to talk about relational contracting today. Now, I want to start with a word called tact. Oh, it's Mr. McFarr, the mailman.
Hey.
Have a seat, Mr. McFarr.
Okay.
Mr. McFarr, we were just talking to our neighbors here.
Is this that YouTube thing that only has like 3 followers and really bad jokes?
Now, Mr. McFarr, that wasn't very nice. Why don't you try that again, and this time use a little bit of tact.
Okay. Your videos make me feel the opposite of happy, and your jokes make me want to go back to work, with all due respect.
That's more like it. You see, tact is an important human skill for building relationships and can even be important for contractual relationships. Now, Mr. McFarr, what do you think of when you hear the term relational contracting?
I have no idea, man. I'm just a mailman.
Okay, all right. Well, why don't you go ahead and give me your mail, and you can head out. All right, thank you, Mr. McFarr.
I should go now?
Yes, you can go. Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Why don't we use another example by looking at some art? Well, look at this first one here. This is a beach. Wouldn't you love to walk down that beach? Okay, let's look at this second one. Wow, this is a big jungle. Look at that blue sky there. It's really pretty. Let's look at this third one here. Looks like it's a chart depicting all the protests from FY 2018 to FY 2022, and which ones were sustained and which ones were dismissed. Wow, that is pretty. I like the squares. Now, notice there were 1,658 protests filed in 2022, but only 59 of those were sustained. Now, that's a 13% sustain rate. Now, that gets me thinking, if there are so many protests filed and only some of them are actually sustained, is there something the government's not talking to industry about before things get to the protest? If only there was some kind of conversation that the government can have to explain the rationale of their award decision before things get a little too ugly and it gets to a protest. I got it. There is a way, and it's called a post-award debrief. I'm going to go to the Federal Acquisition Regulations here, and there's a lot of debriefs. There's pre-award debriefs. We're going to focus on post-award debriefs. FAR 15.506. A debrief conducted by the government gives the opportunity for the government to explain the rationale of their decision. All right, so if we look down at D, so 15.506D, it talks about the type of things that debriefings need to have. The word shall. At a minimum, the debriefing shall include. In 6, it says reasonable responses to relevant questions. What makes a relevant question? It doesn't say. What makes a reasonable response? It doesn't say. It gives the CO the discretion to pick what that reasonable response is. And if we look over to B here, it says that debriefings of successful or unsuccessful offers may be done orally, in writing, or any other method acceptable to the CO. It gives the CO discretion to really choose how the debriefing should be done, as it should. And it leaves a lot of flexibility to interpret what a reasonable response is to what they consider to be a relevant question, which means that you can just do the minimum and be in compliance with the FAR. Now, let's talk about the difference between a traditional post-award debriefing and what we are calling a relational debriefing. Now, what you usually see in traditional post-award debriefs is a lot of times they're written. Usually you try to just give the minimum info possible because the focus is on that protest window. You want to explain what you can, but you want to start that protest clock. Usually it's a very formal tone, which leads to more of an adversarial tone, kind of like a legal tone. The main purpose of traditional seems to be defense. The government's trying to defend their positions. Now, look at relational. With relational, it's a different tone. We're not so much focused on defense, we're focused on guidance. So it's in person. We focus on the relevant details that the debriefed company wants to know. And that goes to compliance with 15.506D6, which is providing reasonable responses to relevant questions. We focus less on the protest window and more on the company, and we keep it informal. Again, this is a tone of guidance. This is about the company. So how do we do relational debriefing? I'm going to discuss the 4 rules of relational debriefing. Okay, rule number 1. Debriefs are not about you, so be helpful, not defensive. Now, this is the first big rule to relational debriefing. Don't make the debrief about you. You are opening yourself up for a more fluid conversation for the sake of the offer. You're explaining the basis of your decision for the benefit of the offerer. It's all about them. They need clarity, and you want to give it to them. Remember, the word relational is about relationships. You're thinking about them. And don't just think this way, you need to act this way as well. Don't give any appearance that you're on the defensive. Be kind, warm, and focused on giving clear and open answers. Take out the legalese and make it more authentic and helpful. So in other words, you're not giving a thanks for playing kind of tone. Your tone is more like, please keep playing, and let me give you some tips on how you can play better in the future. Rule number 2, if you have nothing to hide, don't hide anything. If you actually do have something to hide, well, you may be in trouble. And sorry to say, a company should protest you and hold you accountable to protect the integrity of the federal procurement system. But I'm going to assume you are a diligent, fair, and prudent contracting officer. You've crossed your T's, dotted your I's, you made a fair decision and backed it up with good documentation and a strong award decision rationale. Great. But you still have a potential communication problem. In other words, are you being as transparent as you could be about your good, well-documented decision? Protest statistics say probably not. You want to be overtly helpful. If you're confident in the legality of your decision, don't hide what you shouldn't hide. Let them see your confidence. Now, there are some things that you cannot discuss in a debrief, and you need to make sure the debriefed offerer understands FAR 15.506E. Finally, being this open will undeniably make your source selection documentation better. You'll start to read tech eval forms and think, oh, I'm going to have to explain this in detail face-to-face with a company later. Is this tight enough? Is this documentation good enough? So being this open and information you're giving is one of the scariest parts, but it's a risk worth taking. Rule number 3, transition from a discussion about the past to a discussion about the future. Now, this was my favorite part of the relational debriefs. At some point, after explaining the rationale for the award decision, you need to shift the topic and say something like, okay, let's talk about the future. Can you tell me about some of the things that your company does? So the debrief would actually have 2 parts. Part 1, discuss the rationale of your award. And then part 2, you're discussing future opportunities for the debriefed company. Sometimes part 2 takes longer than part 1. Most debriefed offers love part 2, as you can imagine. It gives you an opportunity to have a good market research one-on-one conversation with the company. Now, the offer just lost the decision. Part 2 is an uplifting boost for these companies and serves as another signal for the company to please keep playing. Let them know about upcoming requirements. Let them know about challenges your offices are facing. Give them some guidance on other resources like Procurement Technical Assistance Centers or PTACs or other offices that may help them. Remember Rule 1, the debriefings are for the offers, not you. To carry this concept to the next level, you can do something that the FAR does not require, but is incredibly effective in building relationships. this rule has critics as well. A lot of people think that this is an inappropriate one-on-one discussion with companies. I don't find that argument very convincing. Now, keep your information level-handed. You don't want unfair treatment. But really, this is a good market research opportunity for you to talk to a company. And if you're doing it to every debriefed offer, it's a way that you can help that debriefed offer be part of a greater competition. So really, you're encouraging more competition by getting better proposals. And especially if you're helping small businesses and small startups, non-traditionals, it's a really good thing. So rule number 4, you really do have the time for relational debriefings. You just need to make that time happen. So there are some competitions with over 10 unsuccessful proposals. It's hard to have 10 or more relational debriefs when you're already overworked, short-staffed, and pressured to be protest-free as soon as possible. So perhaps if you're dealing with those numbers, another debriefing approach is best, or maybe it's a sign that you need to down-select to a lower number so you have a more manageable pool of post-award debriefs. But I promise you that you can set your team up to have these conversations, regardless of your workload, staff size, or time constraints. You just need to make the time happen. So ways you can do this is prepare a PowerPoint slide to guide the conversation and have it ready. Start taking advantage of remote meetings, and then be ready to give the company one of the most meaningful and memorable 30-minute to 1-hour sessions that it will ever have with the government. And remember, me. If you don't share the reasons for awards you defend, your industry friends will protest your rear end. Industry friends, government friends.
Hold on. Sorry, hold on. I forgot a piece of mail.
Oh,
sorry about that.
No problem, Mr.
There you
McFarr.
go.
Thank you. Wow. The Fred Rogers estate. A cease and desist. Who's Fred Rogers? Acquisition's hard, but it doesn't have to be. Whether you're from government or industry, if you're looking for solutions to your hard problems, click the link below to schedule a chat. We'd love to hear from you.